let me share with you a brief overview of gluten, okay, and this hype about gluten. What is gluten all about, right? You've heard friends and family talk about gluten sensitivity or celiac disease, or if you've heard about the different types of restaurants now that are carrying gluten-free menus, and you're kind of thinking, well, what is this? Is this just a fad? Is this something that is absolutely researched and necessary, or is it just hype? And what I'd like to uncover a little bit is just a brief overview. Some people have a lot of frustrations with their health, whether they've had ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, or maybe they've had a thyroid problem, or maybe they've had digestion upsets, or different types of neurological symptoms like or autoimmunity, right? Multiple sclerosis, different types of lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, all of these different autoimmune. If you know someone who has suffered from one of these conditions or has not been able to find out specific answers, sometimes, more often than not, we have different things in our environment that will affect us. And with autoimmunity, with thyroid, autoantibody thyroid problems, and so on and so forth, the list goes on, and neurological complications. We see this with kids, right? ADHD, ADD, anger disorders, or bouts of anger from children, and not being able to cope with what's happening around them. All of those are neurological conditions. We've seen some direct relationship with those problems and gluten sensitivity. And you might be thinking, okay, yeah, here he goes, saying that we all have a gluten problem. Well, here's what it shows. It shows from a sensitivity standpoint on testing. So you might say, well, yeah, I've heard that before, doc, and I went down to my primary doctor, I went to my naturopathic, and they tested me for this. Okay, but we realize in medicine today, or all of healthcare today, our tests are very limited. For example, if you look at some of the testing from blood analysis, so let's say they took your blood and they checked for an autoantibody against one component. We know there are many hundreds of autoantibodies that could occur, and if they're only testing one or two, how accurate could that be? I mean, it's yes, if it shows up positive, then absolutely you have it. But just because the 1 or 2 or even 5 or 10 tests shows up negative doesn't mean that the rest of them are negative, right? So that's one of the limitations that we run into from a lab standpoint. The other thing is the sensitivity of the test. So a lot of the labs right now, their sensitivities are up 3-4 standard deviations. And what that means is the more standard deviations, the less accurate. Right? So the less sensitive the test is. And we have now, over the last few years, there was a lab specifically opened up just to refine that specificity. And so now we're able to actually test up to 1 standard deviation. But again, that's only towards a limited number of antibodies, where there's so many antibodies, but we have a very limited number. And they're trying to get that up as far as testing more and more, so that we can truly understand this gluten problem. So if you've had the frustration, or you've had a kind of a almost thrown up your hands in the air and said, well, I don't have a gluten problem because I went and got tested and they said I was fine, but I still have the symptoms. But that's one of the reasons why some people can cut gluten completely out of their diet and they feel better. They actually make changes. And you might be thinking, okay, doc, but I tried that and I didn't have any changes. Well, there's another reason behind that as well, is the research shows that it takes quite a long time for the inflammatory response, right, the body's immune system's response to injury, that has to, if you take in gluten and it spikes it up, it takes roughly, a long time, 8 to 14 months before that inflammatory response is back down to as if you never went off gluten, or you were never on it, right? So it takes a long time in some instances to really see a change. And in some patients, they go off gluten and within a couple of weeks they see a great change, because it's just enough to reduce the inflammation to get an outcome with their symptoms. And in others, it takes a long time. And in some people, they don't even have symptoms because of gluten sensitivity. So that's another danger, is that gluten can literally be going on in the inside and tearing up components of your intestines, tearing up components of your other organ systems. And it's not gluten that actually does that, but it's the immune system that sees gluten, okay, as a protein. There's a protein in gluten called gliadin, And when that gliadin protein attaches to your intestines, it causes damage. Then the immune cells have to come up here to help heal and make sure everything, and so it remembers that protein of gliadin. It says, okay, I'm going to remember you next time I see you. And then it passes that memory to all of its buddies, right? All of the immune cells. This is called humoral immunity. This is where you gain a memory, if you will, into your cells. And so the next time it sees a protein very similar, see, it's uniquely different, but it's still similar, it will go after that protein inside your body. For example, the gliadin protein of gluten is very similar to the thyroid protein in your thyroid. That's why autoimmune thyroid cases have a direct response to gluten. Another one for type 1 diabetes is there's a protein in milk called casein. That protein looks very similar to the islets of Langerhans cells in the pancreas, and therefore it attacks. This is called cross-reactive reactivity. Okay? And in the research, this is very, very prevalent. It shows how you can also cross-react that with other foods. So when your immune system goes after those foods and starts attacking your organ systems, then if you eat other foods, you go after those as well. And in our line of practice, we don't do the traditional methods, okay? And what I mean by that is, traditionally, if you have this autoimmune attack to your thyroid, most people will try to reduce your immune system. So that's, they use corticosteroids or high-powered steroids to try to reduce your immune system. Well, that opens up a world of problems as well, right? It opens up a world of hurt because your immune system's not ready to help you. So from a gluten standpoint, hopefully this is hopefully I'm able to encourage you to find somebody who knows about gluten to share with you. And I know that through our office we do speak in the public, in the community, and we give presentations that are about a couple hours in length, going through the research based on gluten. And one thing that might amaze you is that even from a governmental standpoint, some people say, well, I've heard this thing about wheat, is it genetically modified or good, or why is European wheat different than ours? And all of these different questions start coming up, and you're getting confused, and the media is trying to say one thing about gluten, and the research is pretty clear. It's pretty clear in its direction. Now, yes, we don't know everything about it in the healthcare industry, but we know a lot. So what we do know, we like to share. Out of our office, we specialize in sharing this information. And like I say, if you'd like to learn a little bit more, I encourage you to attend one of our presentations. And the biggest thing is really, I feel that if you have more information, you're more informed to make an informed decision about whether you do choose to go gluten-free or not, or if it's even necessary for you to do so. So hopefully this gives you kind of an overview, and I invite you to chat more with us if you'd like to learn more or attend a presentation. Thank you.